right here at Iron Bowl week, and Alabama's getting some good recruiting news.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in a bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day, and thank you, newbies, for being here today. So, Jimmy, Alabama got some good recruiting news yesterday. Look, here we are. I think everybody's beginning to get over Oklahoma a little bit. I'm feeling better, and we'll talk about that in the second segment. But, it does help when you get some good recruiting news. Alabama got a commitment for 2025 and a commitment for 2027, which means absolutely nothing, but we're going to pretend it's good news.
Yeah, it's weird that I think Alabama now has 3 commitments for the 27 class and maybe 1 for 2026. But hey, the recruiting calendar has changed. We could do a whole show about that. And it's not crazy unusual to get these far out commitments anymore simply because the recruiting calendar has moved up. I mean, you got to start recruiting these guys younger and start pressing for commitments earlier. And it's just a strange new world. But anyway, the 27 commitment, Alexander Ward, he is from Walton High School over in Marietta, Georgia. Doesn't have a ranking yet. No one needs to be anywhere concerned about that whatsoever. It is insanely early to worry about 2027 rankings.
He's barely been born. I mean, we can't rank him in utero.
Yeah, I would say anyone right now that gets upset about the way someone is ranked in the 2026 class, it's too early for that. It's really too early because there hasn't been focus on the 26 rankings yet, and practically zero on 27. So don't worry about that. You can just look at the raw things about this kid and know that he will be a highly ranked kid, most certainly a 6'3" skill player. So he's got that crazy frame. He can play wide receiver or DB. Alabama, I believe, likes him as a defensive back. This is a guy that Mo Linguist worked with in camp and liked him quite a bit. He's got a safety frame, but a cornerback skill set. You know who fits that description in this 25 class is Dijon Lee. So there's some Dijon Lee here in this kid. Again, a 10th grader in Georgia, had offers from other SEC programs, but hey, he just wants to play for Alabama. He does right now. Now, Luke made some jokes, and it's totally true. It's, this kid wouldn't be signing his college scholarship until December of 2026. That is 25 months from now. So, yeah, it's a long wait. But, hey, I'd rather be in Alabama's position than anyone else's. I mean, the kid clearly likes Alabama. That's a good spot to be in. So this is good news. Does it mean that you can write in blood that this kid's going to be part of the 27 class? Of course not. I don't know if you could do that if he was part of the 25 class, and that's just a week away. So good news for Alabama. Don't mock it. It's good news, and a good prospect that's clearly on Alabama's radar and that likes Alabama. So good news there.
Yeah, definitely good news. And look, we don't even know. We don't know how many teams are going to be in a playoff field in 2027. We don't know who will be coaching. We don't know. I mean, there's so much. And so it is a little silly, but I'm like you, I'd rather have his commitment. If he's going to make a commitment, you'd rather have it. Yep. Of course, I guess LSU fans would say, nah, we wish we had never had Bryce Underwood now that we don't have it. So, that's one way to look at it.
Hey, if we lose this kid because he's getting $12 million, more power to him.
That means he's pretty good. That means the staff can evaluate because he's not even ranked yet.
I'm happy for him.
Meanwhile, Jace Clarizio, is that how we're doing this?
Exactly, Clarizio.
So what's the Clarizio? He has committed to Alabama, flipped from Michigan State. Jimmy and I talked about this last podcast that, this is a guy that is 3/4-star, not going to move the meter a ton for anybody. I totally understand that. And but he is a guy that is very complementary to AK Deer.
Exactly.
And, if you get 2 stud running backs, 2 5-star running backs, chances are you may end up with none because they both may bolt for whatever reasons. But I would say I kind of like having AK Deer in this guy. I'm not going to pretend this is my favorite recruit in the class. I'm not going to sunshine pump anything like that. I'm just going to say, for those who are complete stargazers and think of nothing else, don't be like down on this guy because he's a 3/low 4-star. Just don't. I mean, he's a developmental guy, and that's what you need to treat him as when he doesn't contribute next year.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I have several, analogies or ways I like to explain this, but think about signing 3-star type players. First of all, he is a 3-star, and I think one service has him as a 4-star. This is a top 10 prospect in the state of Michigan. So this is not some weak water take. I mean, Michigan's a big place. Detroit's a huge metro area. This kid's from East Lansing, again, which isn't small. And this is a top 10 player in Michigan. So this isn't like a crazy reach. But he is a 3-star, and that immediately the Saban, like I said, the Saban era didn't spoil Alabama fans. It ruined Alabama fans when it comes to stuff like this. But the thing about 3-stars is, here's both sides of the coin. If you sign 85 3-stars, you know who you are? You're Troy. You're Troy. If you sign 85 3-stars, that's what you are. And good luck competing in the SEC when you're Troy. But here is also a fact. Might surprise some people, but this is also true. Troy has a handful of players over time proved beyond a shadow of a doubt they're good enough to play at Alabama and good enough to play in the SEC and good enough to play winning football in the SEC. A handful of players each year, no matter how good or bad Troy is, are that good. So what you want is to choose the right 3-stars, the right ones, the ones that would have been the first team all Sun Belt running back. For instance, the first team, there's a Sun Belt running back at South Alabama this year that's going to get 35 Power 4 offers, once the portal opens, big money offers too. So he was a 3-star. Ashton Jenney, 3-star. Jarquez Hunter, 3-star. That Sampson kid at Tennessee, Dylan Sampson, 3-star. So that's where I get frustrated, is the emphatic, he's a 3-star, he stinks. That's a terrible take. That's not only rude, it's completely football incorrect. There are many 3-stars that pan out. You got to choose the right ones. They're not all the same. And this staff, Luke, how about this staff in terms of, hey, Keelan Russell was a 3-star when they put him at the top of their board. Look at him now. Jackson Lloyd was a 3-star, and look at him now. This staff's proven to be pretty good at evaluating that kind of talent. So I'm happy with that they chose a second back, and let's see if it works out. He's the second back. It's not like this is the back, guys. They got a 5-star type running back in AK Deer. He's going to be the show. Oh, I think you're muted. I think you're muted during my soliloquy. I think you mute every time I do the Troy. Every time I do the Troy roster spiel. It always takes like 4 minutes.
God, and I just look so dumb because I start talking like I've got my arms all folded, my shoulders hunched, and I'm just sort of, and then I realize I'm muted, and it just sort of takes my confidence away again. Where's my depression pills?
Well, it's
anyway.
Disappointed because I'm figured, boy, you probably said something great there. We'll never hear it.
No, you will never, ever hear it. That is so true.
Hope I didn't miss a good dirty joke.
Well, I thought you were going to tell one. You're not going to tell one. All right. Listen, I want to talk more about recruiting because BOL came out with a little interesting article today, and then just get a general feel for how we're feeling. But one other thing I wanted to say about running backs, this is not a bad point. I feel happy that I came up with this. That, the whole running back position has been devalued. And so where you used to have running backs go way high in the first round, and that is much more rare now. This rare as good tuna. Then you got and I think that is also reflected in recruiting rankings, where there used to be like all these running backs that were 5 stars. Well, now because the position has been somewhat devalued, I think you see 1, maybe occasionally 2 running backs as 5 stars. I think this year is only Harlem Berry for the most part.
It trickles down. Yeah, it trickles down, doesn't it? From the draft to recruiting. And I wish people, I say this all the time, I wish people that follow recruiting are also fans of the draft, but not everybody makes the connection between the two, and they should. I mean, you understand a lot more about recruiting if you're always constantly analogizing it to the draft. And Luke just made a great point about how in the NFL that running back position has been devalued. That has leaked down to and that's why when you're like, boy, the NFL is full of great running backs who are 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks. Yeah, and college football is now full of great running backs who were 3 stars.
I did make a great point.
You did.
Very.
And we were treated to it, and not.
It is deep, but my great points are devalued by I don't get to say them initially because I'm muted. So my great points are also 3 stars. Let's talk a little bit about FanDuel, because I love FanDuel, and you do too. If you ever played it, you'll love it. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, and that's FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. I'm getting all choked up just talking about it.
Free money. That's free. $150 is free.
The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with 150 smacks and bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's that simple. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now I want to tell you about Academy. Academy's the best. I've already said this. Jimmy and I have been there personally. We stayed there. We were there for the grand opening of all things.
We slept in one of the tents back in sporting goods. They're all sporting goods.
It was awesome. They gave away stuff left and right. Gave away all these gift cards that everybody loved. And they're right there in the old Best Buy building. Now it's the new Academy building. And it's in the Target shopping center right behind that Chick-fil-A on 280, where everybody knows where that is, where all the traffic gets a little jumbled up in the Chick-fil-A parking lot. But this Academy is awesome. And if you want to do some Christmas shopping, go to Academy. I'm probably going there this afternoon to get some of my Christmas shopping done because my kids loves Shimano and Yeti and Nike and all the places that all the things that they have. They have all the best brands you could possibly want for hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, whatever. They got it. Tailgating, they got it, man. At Academy, and go see them. They are the nicest people I've ever been around. Seriously, it's like a Canadian Chick-fil-A. They just, it's like, my pleasure. How can I help you? What can I do for you? And that's how they are over at Academy. They just want to take care of you. So go see them. Tell them Locked On Bama sent you. Okay, a couple other quick recruiting notes. Andrew Bone came out with a nice little article today about some potential guys that are still out there for Alabama. Of course, Caleb Cunningham's out the door, which is fine, and I think that ship is completely sailed. Nobody needs to even look into that anymore. But there's Alabama with wide receivers Derek Meadows and Nashawn Montgomery. Meadows committed to LSU, but that won't be for long. I don't think he's officially decommitted. It's a formality. Nashawn Montgomery committed to Florida. Sounds like he will ultimately flip to Bama or Louisville. Which one, Jimmy, do you like the most out of those two?
Derek Meadows.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, tall, crazy.
Plus, he's such a good compliment to Latsier Brooks in terms.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, tall guy, short guy. I say all the time, wide receiver recruiting is like building a basketball team. They don't all need to be the same. You need your big guy, your little guy, your shifty guy, your fast guy, your tough guy, your star, your role player, your possession guy. I mean, it's like building a basketball team. So I like getting the far different types in Brooks and Meadows. Meadows 6'6", great hands. Great kid, by the way. I mean, people speak really highly of Derek Meadows, kind of, in an off the field way. Meadows. Now, Montgomery's interesting. I mean, these Florida receivers, Florida's kind of a great, birthing place for wide receivers. I bet Florida wide receivers could have like their own wing of the NFL Hall of Fame. So anytime someone says, "Hey, he's a receiver from South Florida," well, you've got my interest. But yeah, I'd prefer Meadows. And by the way, wide receiver, we could do multiple shows on this, and we will over the next few months. But I think people are too down on Alabama's wide receiver core as a whole. But I'll also get the complaints. I mean, 2 years in a row, it's felt like we've had a two-man group at wide receiver. Last year it was Isaiah Bond and Jermaine Burton. This year it's Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. And it's like, that's it. And it can't go on like that. But I don't believe it's because no one else in that group can help us. I don't believe that. I think that room is better than what the critics say. But I also hear what y'all are saying, and there needs to start being some production there.
I think there's an explanation. Okay, first you go back to Tua, and you had the rideouts. You had those dudes, 4 dudes who, I mean, if it weren't for Henry Ruggs, I mean, a tragedy in one sense and incredibly bafflingly dumb in another sense, then all of them would still be in the NFL and probably doing pretty well. Jerry Jeudy has really picked his game up. Devontae Smith and Waddle really had a nice game this last week, and he's doing well. Then you get to the Bryce Young era. And when you talk about Bryce Young, and in 2021, you had Mechie and J-Mo, and they were awesome. But I think that what we found out in the national championship that game that year was he didn't have any other options, because when those two were out, the guys that we needed to step up, they didn't step up.
Drop City.
It wasn't Bryce Young's fault, is what I'm saying. I think under Jalen Milroe, and this is going to come off as a complaint about him, but I'm saying I think Jalen Milroe is like, is Ryan open? No. Is Jeremy open? No. I'm out of here. And so I think looks at two different guys. And again, maybe that's because he doesn't have enough time. Maybe it's because whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying it feels like, and then last year it was, is Bond open? No. Is Jermaine Burton? No. Then I'm taking off. That's what it felt like. I think there may actually be some other good receivers on the team this year. We just don't know because they don't get the opportunity.
Yeah, to me, it's about opportunity primarily. Now, I also think it's partly what Luke is saying is certainly true, that Milroe he gets dependent on his security blankets, and we know what those are. But I also think it's opportunity. I don't know the number right in front of me, but I think we're throwing it around 26 times a game. And some of those throws are going to go to tight ends and running backs. And most of, when you're only throwing it 26 times, and you're going to throw it 4 times to the backs and 3 times to the tight ends. Now we're down to 19 throws in a game. And how many of those 19 are going to go to Ryan, and how many are going to go to Jeremy? And then what's left? So to me, it's opportunity, that there's just not enough throws to go around. But, Kendrick Law, I'm speaking to because I know they'll listen to the show. Kendrick, Kobe, E-Man, Cole, sorry, Cole, you can't play anymore. You're hurt. You'll be back. Caleb Odom. Hey, you might only get one ball. Make them throw it to you. Make him throw it. Get open, catch the ball, and you will be the primary receiver if you catch a ball and make something happen. You kind of have to earn it, a little bit. So I do think that a lot of it's not their fault, and I think they're really capable, and they're like, yeah, throw me the ball, I'll show you. But y'all all have been thrown some balls, and just make something happen when you get the opportunity is what I would urge all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Really quickly, Jimmy, Alabama 13, as you predicted, by the way, in the college football playoff rankings. And I think the mood has shifted somewhat because it goes Bama, Ole Miss, and South Kakalaki. And I think that the national media, who, and me included, yesterday before the rankings were like, Alabama's out. I think you may end up being right. There may be truly a path. Now, Alabama needs serious help, and they cannot. I mean, I feel guilty even talking about the playoffs anymore. We were doing that before the Oklahoma game, and then we get waxed. I am taking Auburn very seriously. I hope the team is, because Auburn can beat Alabama. There's no doubt in my mind. And so they got to take care of business against Auburn. But if Alabama were to beat Auburn, there's clearly a path for the Tide to get in.
It would take upsets. I'm working on a piece this morning. I encourage everyone to read just simply because I've worked kind of hard on this thing. I'm doing the path, hey, this is what it would take. And gosh, it's so convoluted and messy. It's kind of fun. Like the ACC, I mean, it'd take up a whole 30 minutes and we only got about eight minutes left. But the ACC itself is so complicated. But to boil it down is this. For Alabama to get in, we need the ACC to be a one-bid team. Alabama's not going to get in. And by the way, I'm assuming the win over Auburn, although I'm not assuming a win over Auburn. You know what I'm saying? Assuming Alabama beats Auburn, this is what else would need to happen. The ACC needs to be a one-bid league for Alabama to get in. And right now, as we speak today, there are 3 ACC teams ahead of Alabama: Miami, SMU, and Clemson. They somehow all or 2 of them need to lose over the next 2 weekends, and in particular this weekend. But it all gets
Notre Dame. It wouldn't hurt if Notre Dame lost to USC.
I'm including that. I think it wouldn't hurt. I think it's possible. I'm of the opinion Notre Dame would not fall below Alabama. They should. They could.
Their 2 losses would be awful losses, and their wins just wouldn't be there.
I agree 1,000,000%, but I also think that I don't trust the committee to properly factor in strength of schedule. And I'm not convinced a 2-loss Notre Dame, even with those 2 losses. Southern Cal's got 5 losses. A&M could end this weekend with 4 losses, and that's their best win. They also lost to Northern Illinois.
All right, so to wrap up, Jimmy, and I hate to put this on the backside, but I mean, the metrics are what the metrics are, and you guys want to talk football more than anything, which we are down with. We love us some football, but Jimmy and I are both big hoops heads, and I'm going to tell you, I went live last night. You couldn't because Kelly was asleep, your beautiful wife, and I understand that because I have 4 children or 8 children or something, and some of them are usually asleep, and somebody's asleep at my house at all times. And anyway, I went live and I was just giddy, and I mean, people were commenting like, gosh, I mean, you're smiling like you hadn't smiled in God knows how long. That's right. Because that game, I mean, to me, that game was everything. I mean, that had the feel of an NCAA tournament game, not even just like the first round. I'm talking Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four-esque. Houston is tough as nails. I'm so impressed with Houston. I'm not here to talk crap about Houston. I'm here to tell you that what I said was they look like they had a bunch of 28-year-old dudes out there to me. They look like, I don't know about an NBA team, but they look like one of those European teams that travels around and you're like, oh my God, they've got a bunch of dudes. But Alabama's got some dudes too, but our physiques aren't necessarily looking like theirs. And one guy in particular whose physique is not like theirs is Aden Holloway, who is really coming into his own. Boy, we've been waiting for him to step it up, and I think he's found his way, Jimmy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I hate to be so, long-term he's going to be awesome kind of guy, but I think he's finding his way. He ain't a superstar. Totally fine with that because he looked great last night. Mo Diabate, again, not the biggest, not the strongest, not the fastest, but he's Herb Jones light. He doesn't have his length, especially in the wingspan, I don't think. I hadn't measured him, but I'm guessing he doesn't. It looks like Herb Jones is like Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards. But, Diabate with all those blocks, 16 huge boards, I think 10 points. I mean, he was easily the hard hat winner last night. And then to top it all off, Mark Sears gets going again. And then Phylon has a terrible game, like by what we've been seeing from him. And somebody takes up the slack, like Aden Holloway took up the slack. And then Phylon was as happy as anybody after the game. This team is really beginning to gel somewhat, Jimmy.
Yeah. What I like, not just the win. The win's awesome because the win's going to help you when it comes to seeding and being in the tournament and that sort of thing. But I think that the game did far more for Alabama than just put a highly impressive win in that W column. I think that's the kind of game that makes you grow up. I think that's the kind of game that makes you better. Alabama woke up today a better basketball team than they woke up yesterday because of how Houston made you work to win the game, and how you can only beat Houston if you match their toughness. And Alabama did that. They matched Houston's toughness, which is a tall order. That was a great win. Now, it's not going to be perfect. Like Luke's talking about Aden Holloway. I think Holloway's awesomely talented. I just think he's going to be one of these guys. His performance all year long is probably going to be like an EKG. I mean, if it's here and then it's here and it's there and it's there, which is typical but exaggerated for a young super talent. I mean, they ain't all Brandon Millers. You know, I mean, just a lot of times with young guys, it takes them a while to build that consistency of performance. But Holloway was fantastic last night. Mark Sears is Mark Sears again. Alabama doesn't win that game without Mark Sears. Grant Nelson also, I loved his effort last night. Grant Nelson looks so much healthier to me than I've seen him previously, and with energy and playing hard. You know, Grant plays hard. One thing about Grant, he does play hard. It might not be pretty all the time, but that dude plays hard, although no one on this earth plays any harder than Mo Diabate. I suggested on Twitter last night that we not rename the Hard Hat Award after Mo Diabate, rename the actual hard hat itself. Call the hard hat Little Mo.
Just a picture of him on there.
Yeah, because he exemplifies to me what Nate Oates is always preaching about: max effort on defense. That's Mo.
Yeah, you talk about Grant not being pretty all the time. His shot is kind of unique looking. Comes all the way back over his head and sort of flicks it, but it's effective. And then the other thing that stands out to me when you said that, remember when Darian Reed hits a three and then he comes down and it's a heat check and it's an air ball, and Grant gets the rebound in an awkward position under the goal, goes straight up, and Houston fouls him. And that was so big in the moment, like it's one of those things that in the end, it just sort of shows up as a rebound, whatever, but it was a huge point in the game and he got in position to get that. It was awkward, but it very effective. The other thing that I love about it, especially now that we won, the refs were pretty lax with the whistle for the most part. Now, a couple of times they called some things that I thought were iffy in terms of like, boy, y'all had been calling that all night and both ways. But they let them play, especially at the end. There were bodies hit the floor like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, okay, I don't love this style of play. This isn't what I want basketball to be. However, this is going to toughen us up. And because we're winning, I was cool with it. If we weren't winning, I'd be like, oh my God, I gotta call some of this. But I was cool with it because we were winning, and I was like, this is gonna mature our young guys. The one thing that I guess, and it's not a negative, it's just to point this out. Aden Sherrill only playing 2 minutes.
I'd like to see him play more.
I would too, but I think obviously this worked. I mean, we won.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying, I love every time I see Sherrill on the floor, I'm like, wow, well, this kid's gonna be such a thing.
He is, but I'll tell you, every time it went to break and like they showed the Bama huddle, and I looked at him in my head, comparing him to Houston guys, as big and menacing as he is to people like you and me, he looked like a youngster in the face. He looked like he almost had a baby face. I mean, now Aden Holloway has one too. Aden Holloway looks 14 versus the Houston guys that look 38. So, I mean, that's true. But Aden Sherrill, I think, does need to grow up some. And you could make the argument, well, he could have grown up in that game. Could have. But I think it was also good to have Grant Nelson completely. I mean, I feel like Grant Nelson's completely rust-free now.
Yeah, notice that so much of why we won the game last night were the veterans. It took that to beat Houston. Yeah, that was not a
How
game.
do they always have veterans, by the way, Houston? I mean, like all their guys are like literal veterans. I think some of them were in the Iraq War.
Yeah, it was not a play. When Phylon wasn't having a good game, I totally understood it. I'm like, well, when Phylon wasn't playing well, I'm like, that court is not a place for 18-year-olds. It's not. You gotta that was for the grown-ups only last night. And it was the grown-ups. It was Reitzel, it was Nelson, it was Sears, and Grant Nelson, and Diabate, who's a bit of a veteran based on his NCAA experience, a year ago. So great win. But I insist that it was bigger than a win. It was Alabama developing as a team and developing a toughness that will carry with them all the way to March.
While getting the win. I think that's the key. Because now I'm going to tell you, Jimmy, I look at the top 10 and I see, Kansas is one. Okay. I mean, Kansas has the brand recognition just like Bama. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt. In football, Kansas get it. In basketball, get it. But I don't know two teams I'd rather not play than Alabama and Auburn.
Could be the two best teams. Could be. I mean, they're up there and both have wins over Houston now. And yeah, Auburn's really good. And I know it's controversial to say locked on Bama, but I do think for those of us who are big basketball fans and want Alabama to be good for a long time, I think it benefits this state when both Alabama and Auburn are this good, because it's going to engender an interest in basketball that we just haven't had enough of. And we need basketball being a bigger thing here. And Alabama and Auburn both being good helps that.
I'm clapping for the great point and the first time ever either one of us has used the term engender on this podcast. Clapping for both reasons. All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow is the crossover episode that I did with Zach Blackerby. Now, Zach's a good dude. I know some Locked On Bama fans don't like him, like Locked On Auburn fans don't like me. I'm telling you, Zach and I like each other. Good dude, I promise you. And I think it was kind of brutally honest on both counts what we did yesterday. So, and the podcast will be tomorrow, but we cut it yesterday. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I want everybody to have a blessed and thankful Thanksgiving. And I want y'all to have tons of fun and enjoy watching Jahmyr Gibbs tomorrow and Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle on Thursday night. So until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.